Thank you, everybody, and good evening to all those at home watching in on YouTube and the Medway Council website for tonight's 9th of July Cabinet meeting. Before we move to the formal agenda, there are three things I wanted to raise. Firstly, and the most important statement today, happy 6th birthday to Ned. I'll move to some other business as well. Secondly, you will note for those who are watching, this is not our normal backdrop. We're here today at the Cossington Park Sports Centre. Fantastic new facility here in the heart of Medway. This will be formally open next week, but you can see from the facilities we have here, a great place for people to come and enjoy themselves from a leisure perspective, to be able to come and do business, to make sure that they can do all of those things and absolutely enjoy the architecture of it as well. We were just looking at what will be a fantastic green wall in 18 to 24 months' time. So we'd encourage everybody to come down and see our fantastic new sports centre after that's formally opened. I was chatting to a couple who I think were signing up for membership, so that's good to see. And then thirdly, before we move to the agenda, for the observant amongst everybody, you will note there are some new individuals round the table. Since our last Cabinet meeting, we held the general election. I will talk about that more at full council. But I'm incredibly proud that three of our Cabinet members have been given the opportunity to serve their constituents. Tris Osborne with Chatham and Aylesford, Nashaba Khan for Gillingham and Raynham, and Lauren Edwards for Rochester and Stroud. And a huge congratulations from us as a Cabinet, and I know from the good people of Medway. I will take this opportunity to thank our three outgoing MPs as well. They served our community. We may not have agreed on everything all the time, but the vast majority of the time we disagreed agreeably. And from my perspective, that's what politics should be about. So what that does mean is we're welcoming three brand new Cabinet members this evening. They've had the whole, I think, 24 hours plus a couple of extra hours on top to be ready for tonight. So a big welcome to Nina, to Alex and to Luella. I know you will do a tremendous job on this Cabinet. I know you're here with the full support of the rest of the Labour group. And I know the people of Medway will want to support you in your new roles. Also recognising that Harinder has moved portfolio as well. So Harinder, you did a great job in heritage, culture and leisure. I know you'll take on the new role very strongly. And we'll of course make sure detailed briefings are given to Cabinet members. And I promise next time you'll have more than 24 hours before stepping into the meeting. We have apologies for absence from Zoe. She'll be here later on. Are colleagues happy for me to sign the record of the meeting of the 11th of June?
Agreed.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests and other significant interests? No, thank you. That moves us on to our first substantive item tonight. Adam, over to you. Care experience as a protected characteristic.
Thank you, Leader Vince, and welcome to my new colleagues, and sending all my good wishes to, I was going to use the word departed colleagues, but move to another place colleagues. I'm very excited to be able to present this agenda item, which is going to move forward for care experience as a protected characteristic. And this is within Medway, where about the 90th or the 91st authority to move ahead on this. And it's to make sure that basically children having been in care within Medway is going to be a protected characteristic. Now, I know that this came up in principle at an earlier full council meeting, but this time at the Cabinet, we are moving forward based on the fact that it's been through scrutiny. So it's been through Health and Adult Scrutiny Committee. It's been through Children and Young People, that committee as well. And broadly speaking, you won't be surprised that it's gained full support from both of those scrutiny bodies. Basically, looked after children and also adults who have been looked after children, they do face discrimination on two grounds: those that have had disability, but also those that have been just in care, because under this, it'll be unlawful for employers to be able to discriminate against someone just because they've been in care. it's for references and for applying for jobs and applying for housing. The criteria will be on the individual and what they've done, not what their background has been. So I'd like to warmly endorse this and ask for the full support of Council. There is a video, I'm not sure if it's going to be shown tonight, but it will be shown at full Council, as I understand, which will capture the voice of the care experienced child within this as well. So I'd like to thank officers for the partnership working that they've done with Young Lives Foundation on this, and that includes their current apprentice, Hayley, as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we're going to take the video before we move to wider discussion. Yeah. So, and hopefully viewers online will see this as well. So we'll move over to the video and then I'll take contributions from Cabinet colleagues.
The Medway Children and Young Persons Council, known as the MCYPC, has worked with Medway Council to ask the care experienced people of Medway whether they thought that care experience should be a protected characteristic and the reasons that they felt this way.
This animation explains why care experience should become a protected characteristic. Under the Equality Act 2010, protected characteristics are specific attributes that legally protect people from discrimination. Currently, there are 9 protected characteristics. The aim of protecting these characteristics is so that educational organisations, employers, or support services cannot discriminate against people for having those traits and must make reasonable adjustments to allow those people to thrive, regardless of their unique needs. So, what is care experience? Care experience refers to individuals who have been in the care system, including foster care, residential care, or other forms of care. Young people have consistently raised that these experiences can profoundly impact their lives, often affecting education, employment, and personal development. Why should care experience be a protected characteristic? Like the existing protected characteristics, care experience is a trait that people cannot help having and yet causes them to be treated unfairly across many settings. Here are 3 reasons why care experienced individuals deserve to be protected. 1. Care experienced people face unfair disadvantages.
Being in care makes us different and stand out. This can lead to poor educational experiences, mental health issues, and difficulty accessing employment.
2. Care experienced people face daily discrimination and stigma.
It's hard enough growing up away from family, but then it's made worse when you're also worried that others are judging you and that this might impact your future.
3. Care experienced individuals can face barriers at every stage of life.
I used to hide that I was in care, but recently when I shared my status at college, it helped me get more support. But I'm now worried about employers using it against me. My hope is by becoming protected, people who grow up in care will be better supported when it comes to school, finding good jobs, and feeling happier and healthier.
Making care experience a protected characteristic would address the significant disadvantages, discrimination, and barriers faced. It would promote fairness, tackle stigma and stereotypes, and reduce the barriers faced, and fulfill moral and legal responsibilities to the vulnerable members of our society. So far, numerous councils across the UK are backing this movement to make care experience a protected characteristic. Please show your support too. Thank you for listening and doing your part to meaningfully support care experienced young people. To learn more and support the campaign, visit ylf.org.uk/MCYPC/protected-characteristics.
Thank you very much for that video, and thanks to all those who helped produce that. Very, very powerful. And we'll be showing that at full council, just so colleagues know, and I think that will be, again, another helpful way of explaining why this is so important. So I saw Tracy first. Happy to hand over to Tracy.
Thank you very much, and really good to see that video too. And thank you to Adam for bringing this to council. I'm so pleased to see it here. Care experienced people often have the hardest start in life, and it's really up to all of us in positions of responsibility to make sure that nothing holds them back. We want every child in Medway to be able to achieve whatever they want in their lives, all their ambitions. And so we want to make sure that we remove any additional barriers that care experienced people face. As corporate parents, the interest of our care experienced people is always at the front of our minds. But making care experience a protected characteristic strengthens our ability to ensure that these people have the same protections against discrimination that others have. By agreeing this tonight, we can go on to encourage our partners in the wider community to join with us in making sure that we tackle discrimination until such a time that this is enshrined in law and becomes a protected characteristic legally. So thank you for bringing this.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Tracy. Teresa.
Thank you, and thank you, Adam. Thank you, Adam, for bringing... I think it's because yours is on. Yep. Thank you, Adam, for bringing the report and echoing what Tracy said. This is about our high ambitions and high expectations for everybody, and where we have to step in and level up for people who are disadvantaged. This shows that we can do it, and we're sending a strong message, I hope, to the new government and to everybody in Medway that this is a group of people who we want to be successful, just as we do with our own children. The people that we're talking about are our children. For us around the table, we're their corporate parents, and we want to do, as we do for all children, the very best that we can for them. And I think I'm really pleased, I'm very grateful for the comments from scrutiny, and particularly from the young people themselves. There was a thought by some people that by doing this, it would actually identify people in a way that might be unwelcome, but it's been absolutely clear from talking to the young people, they don't feel like that at all. They would rather be identified for who they are and afforded some protection than have people make assumptions and things that are wrong about them. And I think they've been very brave and courageous to stand up and tell us that.
Thank you very much. Can't see any other colleagues, so before I come back to... Oh, Nina, please, yes.
As somebody who works with looked after children as safeguarding lead, I really, really welcome this. So, Cabinet Member Adam Price, thank you for bringing this forward. And I have been a strong advocate for, our young looked after children to be counted as protected characteristics by Medway Council. And I think what it does recognize is the child's journey and our young people's journey. So despite having adverse childhood experiences, which can have, long-lasting impact, the fact that they have actually traversed through life's trials and tribulations and still have high aspirations, so do we for them. It just goes to show that we are very, very committed to our as corporate parents to make sure that, we will open doors wherever possible, and we will make sure that our aspirations for them will be long-lasting, as well as opening up life chances where it is possible within our means. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much, Nina. Before I come back to Adam, a couple of points from my perspective. I was very lucky to go along to the last corporate parenting board. I understand it's the first time the leader of the council has ever been to a corporate parenting board, so we won't leave it 24 years, I promise. And it was incredibly powerful. Two things I took away from that was hearing directly, amplifying what we saw in that video with personal experiences, some of which need pretty quick intervention, including from partners. It's not all about Medway Council, of course, with this. And I'm hopeful, as has mentioned and other colleagues have mentioned, this is about sending a message to everyone else. Again, that one Medway approach to say, actually, we think this is really important and we hope you do too. The other thing I would say is that a couple of elected members shared their own personal experiences, which from a cross-party basis, which was incredibly powerful. The fact that they were willing to do that in that kind of safe space of corporate parenting board, again, to me, was pretty inspirational, and I thank them both at the end of the meeting. But again, it shows that confidence in being able to say, look, this has affected me, this has affected my life, and therefore doing this, if it was the same as I was 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, this would have been helpful. And we can't necessarily change history, but what we can do is make sure the future's history is better. And again, I draw colleagues' attention particularly to the paragraphs 4.14, 15 and 16. I want to be really clear. What we are doing for our care leavers in particular is good, but there could always be more done as well. Part of that is around learning best practice, and actually part of that is around the level of resources we have available to us. We don't, as colleagues well know, we've had a 91% cut in our revenue support grant since 2010. So being able to do as much as we can with the resources we have is really, really important. And I think the hopefully unanimous decision that will come from full council is about reasonable adjustment, reasonable, in part in the level of resources we have available to do all that we can. So I'm really proud that we will be bringing this forward to full council, and I'll be voting for it tonight, and I'll be voting for it there as well. Adam, back to you.
Thank you, members. Thank you, first of all, Tracy. Looked after children suffer from discrimination at school as much as they do in housing, employment, etc., and all of that. As Medway's corporate parents, through the Corporate Parenting Board, we adopt the approach as if these children, of which there are many, were our own children. And what we would do if we are parents of our own children is we would do that little bit extra in order to be able to make up for any knockbacks that they've had like before, to make sure that they can grasp those opportunities and for the life which is ahead of them, not being haunted by what's happened prior to that. Also like to thank you, Councillor Gurung, for choosing this subject to make your maiden cabinet speech. Also to thank you for the work which you did personally as our Madam Mayor last year for our looked after children. So that included working with the Young Lives Foundation, making sure that we were able to book Priestfields, and making sure that council members were given the opportunity to make donations from their ward improvement funds, to make sure that we were able to celebrate their achievements last year as well. So I'd like to thank you for that, as well as for your support tonight. And Vince, what else can I say? It's taken 24 years for a leader to come to the Corporate Parenting Board, which took place last week, I think it was. And we were joined at that meeting by visitors from the government of Jersey. So we do have a former employee who was on secondment to Jersey that used to work with us as assistant director. So she's now working over in Jersey. They chose to come and visit us, but also to sit in on the Corporate Parenting Board in Medway as best practice, which they're looking forward to take forward within their jurisdiction as well. So I'd like to thank each of you for your contribution towards that, and I'd like to thank other members here, and also the Young Lives Foundation for that fantastic work on the video which we've just seen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. Is the recommendation to recommend it to full council agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the next agenda item. There are a number of supplementary reports in this as well. They're available on modern.gov. Simon, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, colleagues, for listening to this item. It's one of the most important pieces of work we'll be doing in our first period as a council, I think. And so I won't go into too much detail, and I do appreciate that the volume of papers involved here means you probably haven't read everything, but that won't be held against you because there's lots of time to read it over the coming weeks of this consultation. Basically, the local plan has reached a key point in its progress. What we call the local development scheme, which is the timetable of the local plan, has now reached that stage of a further public consultation under the Regulation 18 of the process by which it has to go through. And this is the second time we've consulted with the public. We did it a sort of an overview consultation last autumn, and now we're going into a much more deeper dive into the documents involved. And there is a lot of paperwork involved, there's a lot of reading to be done, but this is actually essential for so much of how we take forward our plans for Medway. It was delayed by the pre-election period and the election itself, and a huge thanks to the officers who've produced such a massive volume of work in a very short time. When we came into the authority last May, we were very clear we wanted to get this done within 2 or 3 years. It's going to be 3 years probably that it'll be done in, but that's where we are now, and that's taken a huge effort on their part. I'd like to add my thanks as well to colleagues who are no longer around this table, to Lauren and Nashaba, who were part of our local plan team going forward, and to Tris as well, who had a lot of input to this process as well. So basically, we're into this Reg 18 public consultation process. The documents involved, there's a key report, obviously the main report, plus a whole bunch of appendices and maps labelled 2A to 2E, 3, 4 and 5, so a lot of paperwork to get through. So obviously something to be reading in the next few weeks. The report gives a much greater detail on what we think development will look like as we go forward. There's a lot of constraints within the plan-making process where we can put new housing or new employment areas or new leisure facilities, all those aspects of the local plan, and those are constrained by what's already on the ground. And all that work is detailed in this series of papers as well. Members and colleagues have had some presentations on this by officers, so hopefully you feel that you're well informed for the decision you've got to make this evening about taking this into this consultation. But the plan, as I say, is an essential part of our work going forward. Within our One Medway plan, we are committed to producing this, and it details how we can achieve sustainability for our economy, for our environmental improvement, and most importantly for the enhancement of our communities and for the health and well-being of all our residents in Medway. It's a complex piece of work, but it does provide that level of surety for developers and for investors in our area that we know what we're doing, and this is a good place for them to invest their resources in our community. It's also a plan for the future. This is really all about how we deal with the next generation and the generation after that. We're certainly looking at transport, jobs, environment, housing, the infrastructure that goes all around that, and that's about planning for the future. This plan runs from now until 2041, but we'll go beyond that as well, because the houses that we build now will be here in 100 years' time, and we have to be thinking in those terms and how we're going to provide for those generations to come after we're all finished being councillors around the table tonight. So it's a key piece of work in that respect. So with colleagues' approval, we want to begin our period of consultation over the next 8 weeks up until September. We've extended it because of the summer holidays, give people a chance to be away and still have a chance to comment. Consultation takes the place of a number of public events across the whole of Medway, which have already been planned, and the dates of those are being released as I speak. And there'll be an online consultation. People can talk to their ward councillors and such like and just get their views in. It's essential that everybody from all parts of our community, whether you're a young person coming out of school or you're just about to retire, we need to be providing for your needs. And now is the time to say and have your say on what those needs are. So it's, and all elements of our community, the diversity of Medway is huge. And we want to make sure that every part of our community has its opportunity to have their say, and this is it now. So basically we're asking for approval from colleagues tonight to take this into the Reg 18B consultation phase. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Simon. Teresa, please.
Thank you, Simon, and to all the officers who've worked on this complex piece of policy. And I know, Simon, your commitment and your determination to take care of our environment is absolutely running with every thread through this plan. It's important for people to understand that as we consult on the local plan, there are a number of key documents sitting underneath it. It's not just something that is talking about houses, it's talking about the whole of our future and the way we build Medway over the next 40, 50 years. And this plan shows us how serious and determined we are to make sure that everything is covered. That the plan takes cognizance of floods that we've had in Medway and the way that we've handled them. It shows lots of learning from officers, and I hope that it provides reassurance to the public that we are going to build things in the right place where it's safe to do so, and we're going to mitigate any risks because we've done such a lot of work identifying how and where they might happen before anything goes wrong. So I do commend this to everybody. Like Simon, I commend the consultation. I know that Cabinet members around the table and members of the council will be joining everybody at the consultation sessions, listening to what they've got to say. But to be able to have a complex document like this in readable form, with appropriate diagrams and photographs to help people interpret it, I think is a big achievement, and I'm pleased to see it here tonight.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Harinder, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Simon. And if there's one thing I think that bears repeating, and Simon has covered it quite eloquently, is that the local plan does not just cover housing, that it in fact covers everything that we do as a council, all the services that we provide in a sense of how the land is allocated, and so that involves our jobs, our communities, our well-being, and how that is planned for the future. As Simon mentioned, we're looking to the future with this. It's not how we would like to necessarily see Medway right now, but how we're looking for future generations, and that requires a plan. It's the most important document that we will produce as a council, and we will produce it. And I highly recommend any Medway resident to get involved in the consultation, and to take it with open eyes, and to look at all the work that was involved and all the constraints. Don't just focus on just one particular concern, rather look at it as a whole, and in that vein you'll I think see and notice all the work that's gone in via officers into this. It has been a lot of work to get to this point, and I think we just should take a moment to mention that as well, that there has been a lot of work from officers that often goes definitely unseen, sometimes unrecognised, but certainly underappreciated. So I just wanted to put my thanks on record there.
Thank you very much, Harinder. Any other colleague? Before I come back to Simon, this is incredibly important. This is more than 2 decades in the making. Let's be really, really clear. And I've said elsewhere in the run-up to this evening that there is no local plan anywhere. And I'm very clear that I'm still very clear. I'll keep being clear. I'm very clear that I wish some of the sites in Capston, which have already got permission, weren't there. And why have they got permission? Because we didn't have an up-to-date local plan. So, I think most people, and Harinder, your contribution was very, very helpful, because I think it's about looking at Medway as a whole, and not Medway as a whole today, Medway as a whole in 5 and 10 and 15 years' time, when people are celebrating 21st birthdays, not 6th birthdays. And actually that point is really important. I would encourage all people, but particularly young people, if you are somebody who is in their 20s, who is currently living in their parents' bedroom and doesn't want to be, have your say on this plan. This is your plan. If you're a community group who is worried because you're not sure about, expansion, because you want to do more for your community, this is your plan. If you've got an allotment and actually you'd want to see more allotments in Medway, this is your plan. We can't underestimate this enough. We need all of the voices of Medway, not just the loudest voices, all of the voices to play their part in this consultation. We've extended it beyond the statutory minimum. That's the right thing to do, because I want everybody to have a break over the summer, but I want everyone to have a break over the summer and still be able to play their part in this consultation. That's really, really important. So, like yourself, Simon, I'd want to pay particular tribute to Nashaba and Lauren for their work in the local plan working group, along with Stephen Hubbard and more recently Chrissy Stamp and Mark Jones. I would want to thank actually Dave Harris and Catherine Smith by name. I wouldn't normally do that, but I think their level of work has been outstanding. This is a really difficult technical document, but at the heart of it, it is, what do you want Medway to be in 2041? What do you want it to be? and think about those challenges we have now. And some of those challenges have been here for some time, longer even than the 21 years we've had the current plan in place. So I'm really pleased we brought this here. I look forward to being at a number of the consultations. Those will be put out on social media. You don't have to attend one of those. You can go online, you can go to the local libraries, there'll be documents there as well. Please get involved. This is your plan. Simon, back to you.
Thanks very much. Thank you, colleagues, very much for your comments and for the positive approach to this. I really appreciate that. I just wanted to just to sort of round up, there's a couple of things on the negative side where we know this is important, but there's also real positive stuff that I would like to emphasise as well. I've heard some stories recently about the number of children who are homeless in Medway, which is quite shocking, actually. This is a plan that will help resolve that issue. We have heard about air pollution causing problems for women trying to go through IVF. This plan will help resolve issues like that. These are shocking situations that we live with all the time in our community, and we are making strides, great strides towards resolving them, and this is a massive step in that direction as well. So I think we've got some negatives to deal with, but on the positive side, during the press stuff that we've been doing in the last couple of days, I was interviewed by somebody from school, a school child, and she was a young person at school. She was asking me, she said to me bluntly, what does this mean for me? And I was able to think for a moment, and I thought, actually, hang on a second. If you want to travel anywhere in Medway and you haven't got a car, this deals with transport. If you want to be growing up and getting a job in Medway, this deals with employment and the economy. So when you come out of school, there will be a job for you locally, and you can live near your mum and dad or whatever, that kind of thing. If you want to go out as a young person in the town centre, this deals with town centres for you. And in the future, when you grow up as a young person and want to raise your own family for the next generation, it deals with that as well. And those are the kind of answers that our young people are looking for in this community, and we can give it them through this plan. That's how important this is. So just to reiterate, please, to all members of the public in Medway, all our members of our communities, get your pens out, get your keyboards going, and put your comments in, and we'll take them on board, and we'll take them forward. The next step after this process in the new year will be the inspector coming in to inspect what we're going to do and approve what we're doing. So that'll be next year's challenge for us. But this is the first step, another step on the journey, this Reg 18. So I look to members to approve the recommendation as laid out in paragraph 1.
Thank you very much indeed, Simon. Is the recommendation agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Let's move then on to the next agenda item. Another important strategy, but probably not quite as wide-ranging. Simon, over to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you, colleagues, for indulging me. I think there's more to come as well, unfortunately. This is all about our flood protection. Flood risk is an issue that we are all aware of in Medway. The flooding comes from two primary sources, and it's getting worse. The River Medway, the highest tides, the mean high tides, have gone up by about 20 centimetres in the last 20 years. I can't remember exact figures, but that's the kind of level. And by 2050, they will be seriously high. The highest tides come up through the drains in the Pentagon Centre and on Medway City Estate, and into the Brook Theatre as well. There's a tide line in the basement of the Brook. That's what it's like now. And that's a contribution from the high tides and global warming that's having its impact. Equally, we've all seen the weather changes over the last few years in our winter rainfall going through the roof, the huge quantities of water being dumped on this area of the UK, and it impacts us in our communities with flooding events that should be taking place once every 30 years and now happening once every 5 years. So we have an issue around flooding. The country has a national flood risk management strategy, and every local authority is required by law to contribute to that. So that's what this report is all about. It's our update from 2010 on our flood risk management strategy, and it deals with how we mitigate as much as we can the risks of flooding, but also how we respond when flooding takes place and people have their lives impacted by flooding. So we are in partnership on this report with our neighbouring authorities, with the Regional Flood and Coastal Committee and the Inland Drainage Boards, and it's something, a document that we have to do, we are doing, and I compliment the officers who worked so hard to put this together and make it forward. So I put it forward for recommendation.
Thank you very much, Simon. Any member? I think before I come back to you, just to say I'd want to place on record my thanks to the Internal Drainage Boards, actually, which in the past has been a bit of a kind of sentence of doom for elected members to be placed on there. But I know actually at the moment, on a cross-party basis. Those who are there are passionate about it, proactively asked to be on it, and actually are making a huge contribution to something which regrettably has become more and more of an issue. I think about your ward, you know, in Luton, where I grew up, you know, Nelson Terrace and around there, the flooding there over the last few years, again, once in a century has happened twice in 10 years. So, yeah, this report is really important. And again, that partnership working, that one Medway approach is critical. Simon, back to you.
I don't think there's anything, just a recommendation in paragraph 1.1 for approval.
Thank you very much. Is the recommendation agreed? Agreed. Thank you, colleagues. Let's move on to the next item. Safer, Healthier Streets Programme, Tranche 2, right. Moving Traffic Enforcement. Simon.
Thank you. Just bear with me a moment while I find my page.
Page 73.
73, thank you. Right, and this is normally would have been a double act between myself and Tris Osborne, but as Tris isn't here tonight, Alex is now sat there with holding the baton. I'm going to hand it over shortly. So this is a process of work that we've been doing for over the last year on our Safer, Healthier Streets programme, coming through our highways team. And it's all about making Medway safer and healthier on its roads in a number of different ways. So incorporated within this programme is our School Streets programme, which is working extremely well. And in fact, we have a queue of schools saying, pick me next, pick me next. That's what it's like for that one, because it is such a popular and successful programme of work that we've now introduced. The other area of it is the red routes, slightly more controversial, but actually since they've been in place, we've had no adverse comments, and they seem to be working extremely well. And this element of it, the tranche 2 work, is all about moving traffic enforcement, those yellow boxes which are sort of faded and stuff like that, but we're repainting them, putting cameras up, and people will be fined for going into a yellow box once the process has gone through. There are 16 of those within this report which we're bringing forward, and we're looking for members' support to go ahead with the work on that. And in addition to that, there's also a further piece of work needs to be done on Star Hill, where there's a right turn, which is a police enforcement process at the bottom of Star Hill, where you're not allowed to turn right up the hill coming out of the high street, and that will be turned into an ANPR camera enforcement following a public consultation on that particular piece of work. So we're looking for approval for that piece of consultation. Just one amendment within the report, if I can make that. It says at the end of the report that the delegated authority should be with the Director of Place and with myself as portfolio holder, but obviously now that Alex is coming into the post, it will be Community Safety, Highways and Enforcement portfolio that takes on the delegated authority. So just make that amendment to the report. But otherwise, I'll put this forward for colleagues' approval.
Thank you very much, Simon. Any member? Alex.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm absolutely delighted to take this on, because I think it's a really important programme of work. I had the pleasure a few weeks ago of being on Holcombe Road in Rochester, one of our new school streets outside St Peter's Infant School, and going back there as a former parent who used to run the gauntlet of cars reversing at speed along a cul-de-sac, having dropped off children and putting other children in danger. It was really a lovely, calm environment to see children walking that last important stretch to school and making that journey, that active travel journey to school, so much safer. So that's part of the programme. I think that what it speaks to, though, is the need for enforcement to be consistent. I think that while people might take issue with individual rules and they might not like a particular yellow box being where it is, or a particular right turn, or whatever, what's most important is that those rules are applied equally and fairly. And I think that what we have at the moment, without the ability to enforce them using ANPR, is a sort of mishmash of levels of enforcement. And I think to give, as a motorist, as a pedestrian, and as a resident, I think having that clarity of how it's going to be enforced is absolutely critical. And ultimately, you know, this is about standing up for the silent majority of people who stick to the rules day in and day out. And I'm afraid that those who make a loud noise about enforcement on things that they think are important, but are also opposed to enforcement of things that they think are electorally expedient, well, you know, shame on them, and this item is another step in the process of moving away from that and towards that consistent enforcement.
Thank you very much indeed, Alex. Teresa.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Simon and Alex, for bringing this forward. I think it's really important to recognise that the report tells us 76% of people in the consultation were aware and supported the need to reduce congestion. And they do that because those people, and lots of others as well, who didn't respond, understand the impact that congestion can have on our lives. We don't want children in Medway dying of lung disease. We don't want people who are going through IVF treatment to have less success. People may have seen out this week a report that has shown that pollution has a very severe impact on the ability of people to achieve conception, particularly if they've done so through IVF. Heart disease is something else affected by pollution caused by congestion. The list goes on. So when people say, you're just doing this to make money, you know, I've always driven into yellow boxes and it's, you know, I've never had any trouble before. I'm afraid neither of those things are true. This is about our commitment to preventing poor health, which runs as a golden thread right through the council in everything that we do, because we've got far too much of it in Medway. And it's about our commitment to making sure that people can get around the towns easily. I was with Alex when he went along to St. Peter's. We'd been there to meet parents and talk about various things. And it was really nice, standing in the sunshine by the garden that the children are growing. They're growing vegetables. We were standing next to a strawberry plot in the sunshine, watching people walk up and down the road very freely, coming and going, chatting. And I think we saw there the big benefit that school streets can make. And in combination with these things, we're going to have a healthier, freer Medway. But take a bit of time to bed down. Everybody has got to understand what's happening. We need to constantly explain ourselves to the public, and we're prepared to do that.
Thank you very much. Any other colleague? Before I come back to Simon, I just want to say a couple of bits on this item. So first is a ward councillor, actually. I really welcome the fact that a number of Chatham High Street contraventions are being more rapidly enforced. That's a good thing. We want pedestrianised areas to be pedestrianised, and we want people to follow the rules, as Alex rightfully says. This administration has been clear repeatedly over the last 14 months. If you play by the rules, we're on your side. If you don't, we're going to hold you to account. And that's why, for example, this week we've launched the brilliant Name and Shame website to, you know, tackle some of those other wider antisocial behaviours which impact on the quality of life for residents. So as a ward councillor, I welcome this, but of course much more widely across the Medway towns, this will ensure road safety, air quality improvements, and everything else that colleagues have talked about. It's important to recognise that once again, similar with tranche 1 for moving traffic offences, there are no new offences here. If you are breaking the rules at the moment and getting away with it, well, lucky you. Spoiler alert, your time's up. So that's really, really important. And there is that technicality around us enforcing for that area in Rochester, whereas at the moment it's the police. So that's where there's a slight addition there for one of the particular areas. So I really welcome this. My thanks to the 99.9% of Medway residents that play by the rules, that won't be impacted by this ever, because they do the right thing. I say for those who don't, your time's up. Simon, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you, colleagues, for the positive contributions. I'm agreeing with you all on this. I mean, one of the things that makes me laugh is when you get, if you introduce any kind of regulation on traffic, you get accused of being anti-car. We've heard that a lot from around the election period in various parts of the country. And actually, we're not anti-car at all. We're pro-community. People need to travel freely and easily through their communities. And at the moment, that's very difficult in the middle of a congested traffic areas. And this reduces congestion, demonstrated by all the data and all the information and the research that's been done over many, many years. These boxes work, and they work well to reduce congestion. The bus companies are delighted by this because 10% of all late buses is caused by congestion. And that's really annoying for the people stood at bus stops waiting for them to turn up, and it's coming 15, 20 minutes late. And that's caused by congestion. And this is one of the measures that we can take to reduce that problem. So all in all, this is about sustainable communities. It's good for the economy, it's good for the environment, it's good for people's health and community as well. So I look to have colleagues' support for this.
Brilliant. Thank you, Simon. I don't think I need to declare an interest for someone waiting for a delayed bus. I think I'm probably okay. But there are a lot for that exact reason. Colleagues, happy to support the recommendations.
Agreed.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's then move on to the Community Safety Partnership Plan 2024-27, obviously written in the name of Tristan Osborne, but now to be introduced tonight by Alex. Over to you.
Thank you, and with impeccable timing, my laptop has run out of juice, so I'll now operate off a slightly smaller screen. Luckily, although I'm new to cabinet, and you would think this has been sprung on me by surprise, this is actually something that we dealt with on the Regeneration, Culture and Environment Committee, which I previously chaired. So I'm well versed in the community safety partnership and the community safety plan, and so happy to introduce it in my own name. This is the first community safety plan under a new administration. Will run from 2024 to 2027, and the plan focuses on 4 main priorities. Violence against women and girls, which aims to tackle and reduce incidents of violence and provide better support for victims. Tackling antisocial behaviour, aiming to reduce nuisance and disorderly behaviour that affects the quality of life in our communities. Tackling drugs and alcohol misuse, including efforts to combat substance abuse, which often contributes to various social issues and crimes, and reducing reoffending by addressing the root causes of criminal behaviour and seeking to reduce the rate of reoffending and promote rehabilitation. And I think that's something that we have seen echoed in the last few days by our new Home Secretary, and a new focus on dealing with the rates of reoffending which are currently filling our prisons and resulting in all sorts of unwelcome outcomes. The plan supports the Community Safety Partnership's vision to work as partners with communities across Medway, sets out the priorities that we have identified as partner agencies, together with those that we have been told most affect quality of life. Reflecting over the past 12 months, we have achieved a great deal, carried out innovative developments to the way we work together, enhancing our ability to deliver improved services to the public. This is a plan which relies on support from statutory partners, including Medway Council, Kent Police, Kent Fire and Rescue Service, Integrated Care Board and the Probation Service, alongside public health, the voluntary and private sector. We've developed and implemented a number of partnership initiatives utilising funding provided from the Police and Crime Commissioner, as well as achieving some excellent results in tackling crime and antisocial behaviour, as detailed within our progress so far in the report. This is something that, you know, in previous a previous role when I worked for the then shadow policing minister on antisocial behaviour and looked at some of the innovative approaches taking place around the country, particularly in those areas with Labour police and crime commissioners. And while there's no doubt that it's harder to do more with less, and that replacing 21,000 lost police officers with 20,000 it doesn't solve anything. It's clear that with innovative approaches that there is more that can be done to protect our community. This particular plan will be reviewed on an annual basis. We'll consult with the people of Medway to ask how we're doing and to find out what they would like us to do on their behalf. The Community Safety Partnership looks forward to working with all of those partners and with the people of Medway to ensure that this remains one of the best places to live, work, learn and visit in the South East now and in the future. And I recommend the report.
Thank you very much indeed. Very, very comprehensive. Thank you, Alex. Teresa.
Thank you, Alex, and for your first speech as a Cabinet member. And it's great that you've been able to bring the experience of regeneration and other experiences that you've had in this particular area of work. I wanted to highlight the fact that this is a plan that speaks to the way that we want to join things up across the council. When we were putting together the local health and wellbeing strategy, and we did lots of engagement for that, and I've said before, I've been really grateful for the way that people joined us and for their frankness and honesty. One of the things that people said made them feel really low-spirited, in fact, even to the point that it depressed them, was antisocial behaviour. Feeling that you couldn't have a peaceful time in your own garden because of other people making a racket and throwing things about, worrying about nuisance motorbikes, women not feeling safe when they go out at night. All of those things contribute to people not having the kind of health and well-being that we want them to have. In other words, not feeling healthy, not feeling that they can achieve their potential, worrying about things, which is very corrosive. So having a community safety plan that actually directly addresses the things that we've got that we want to improve in our local health and wellbeing strategy shows the intent of the council to work with all of our resources, limited though they are at the moment anyway, right across the council, joining things up, making sure that feeling good about things, feeling safe about things is everybody's business.
Simon, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vincent. Thank you very much for the report and for the teams who put this together as well. I think Teri's picking up Teresa's point, really. This is that cross-cutting work that we're so passionate about here. We've talked about how the local plan is so important. We're also talking now about how our communities are so much safer and better when we've got good strategies and good policies and practice in place. And the idea of the prevention side of it, people are struggling financially and emotionally and psychologically, whatever it is, mental health, all those issues where people are struggling. And sometimes they do resort to substances, quite often actually, to relieve their suffering. And helping them get out of that cycle is so important. And that plan, and this plan addresses that issue as well, right to the heart. So it's a health issue, it's a wellbeing issue, it's a community issue, it's all those elements coming together. It's also an enforcement issue. We have to do the enforcement side of things as well. And I think on top of that, and overseeing all that, is the scrutiny. You mentioned how you dealt with it at scrutiny already, and I think that's a responsibility as councillors to act as scrutineers. This plan will only work if we're on it, or every day, or every week, every month, making sure that in our communities where we represent our residents, things are happening to make them better. So through the Cabinet and through the scrutiny committees, but also as ward councillors, we need to be aware of this plan and follow its track through the process. It's a strategy, and we need to see it working. So the onus is on us going forward, so I fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Zoe?
I'm so pleased to see the proposal set out at 4.5, and in particular addressing the issue of violence against women and girls. It was just 3 years ago that we went out and spoke to hundreds of women about their concerns about feeling safe, both in the community and at home. And we're now delivering on that a short while later. So I think it's fantastic that we've got to that place, and that it makes Medway a safer place for women and girls.
Thank you very much. I can't see any other colleagues. So before I go back to Alex, in the same way of thanking Lauren and Nashaba for their work on the local plan working group, I'd want to place on record my thanks to Tris for his chairing of the CSP Community Safety Partnership, because Simon is right. We've got to be critical friends of each other on that partnership. And I think Tris's chairing of that committee, and I know under your chair that will continue, Alex, is about not being afraid to raise a difficult issue, because actually that's how we get improvements. That's how we make the plan work. Like you, Zoe, I'm particularly pleased to see end violence against women and girls as one of the priorities. As people would have noticed, for the last few weeks, I've had stickers on my lapels. I can't think why. I'm back to what I have normally. As most people will know, this is as a White Ribbon ambassador. And if you want a statistic to think about as we look to 8 o'clock tomorrow night, England are playing in the semi-final against the Netherlands. We wish them well. But the reality is not everybody will want that football game to come, because domestic abuse increases by 26% when England plays and wins, and 38% when England plays and loses. So this is a serious matter, and this plan will deal with those actions in that collaborative way, in that one Medway approach to say, actually, this is not just the council, not just the police, not just the voluntary sector, it's all of us together and the wider Medway community. So I'm really pleased to support this, and I'm sure it will receive strong support when we take it to council very, very shortly. So Alex, back to you.
Thanks, Vince. Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely the case, that you know, the things which are explicitly stated in this plan are one thing, and it's really important that violence against women and girls is one of those things which is mentioned explicitly. But you know, just to rewind slightly, I referenced the discussion we had at Regen last month. And some of the criticism that came from some members was around the document being too short, and I have to say that's not a view that I subscribe to in any council document. I think that, you know, as a former sub-editor, you know, succinctness and clarity is the best thing we can do with these documents, because it means they're more likely to be read. And I suppose, you know, what I would say to those members and to reassure them is that nothing should be inferred from the absence of specific reference to specific offences or types of criminality which impact people. This is a report which has drawn on lived experience and people contributing to it, and perception of crime, because that's to an extent, in terms of feelings of safety, almost as important as the real crime figures. If people feel that something is a problem, then, you know, I want to reassure them as the new portfolio holder that I consider it to be a problem as well. And much in the same way as we referenced in the previous item around enforcement of traffic offences, you know, I am on the side of those whose lives are being made a misery by individuals who need to be tackled in whatever way and by whichever agency is appropriate. And I think I speak for everyone in this room in saying that we are on your side, you know, and if, as you said, Vince, you know, if you're not on that side, then your days are numbered, and we're coming for you. And I think we're going to be doing so with the support of the incoming government. It's clearly one of their priorities. And I think that, well, this report relies on support from a police and crime commissioner who perhaps wears a different rosette from myself. This is something that I hope that he will work with the new government on as one of our partners, and I think that we can make great strides and great progress. So on that basis, I would recommend the report as set out at item 1 and recommend it to Cabinet.
Thank you very much indeed, Alex. Is the recommendation agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Let's move on to the next item. Again, reminding colleagues this is on the supplementary agenda. Item 9, garden waste review. Simon, over to you.
Thank you very much, Vince. Yeah, I was just going to point out page 291 of supplementary paper number 1 as well, so just to help people find it if they struggle to, which I did initially, but I found it in the end. But however, I had read it before, and I do assure colleagues of that. This is part, as you're aware, we've been undergoing a complete review of our waste management services. And we're looking to produce a waste strategy over the next year as well. But obviously there's things we can do or we need to do to improve our services and make them work more efficiently. As you know, we're buying our new vehicles. The orders are being placed as I speak to bring our new waste vehicles in, so we're quite excited about that. And we've done other things as well, small electrical services. We put the bins in the libraries, and that's been massively successful. Tons and tons of small electrical devices have been brought into our libraries and are now being recycled as I speak. So things like that are starting to work. And this is another part of that review process of how we do waste. And it's all about our garden waste and our the organic material that we produce from our homes. At the moment, there is a free organic waste service that we have, which provides a brown bin or 2 brown sacks and a small 23-litre food bin as well, which gets picked up from people's homes. And we provide a better service and a more frequent service than most other local authorities on that. But we're adding to that, if you like. For those people with larger quantities of material, we're introducing a second brown bin if they want to, but they will have to pay a subscription of £40 a year towards that. So that's basically sums it up in a nutshell. But it's the statutory service that we have to collect food waste is in there. It's not a statutory service to collect garden waste. So this is something that we're adding on, and there is a cost associated with it. And as colleagues know, we've got a huge financial problem with the council at the moment. We're trying to resolve that as we go forward, and there are plans in place which we've all been part of contributing to. And here, if we are introducing something that is needed as a service, it's going to cost a little bit to pay for. So we're confident that people will be happy to pay for it, and it's a new part of the work that we're doing in waste management. So I put it forward to members for recommendation.
Thank you very much indeed, colleagues. Teresa, please.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. And I think the thing to say about this is that it's about fairness, actually. It's not everybody that is in a position who lives in Medway to have any organic garden waste at all. And for those people that do, being able to have the brown bin and then add bags to it, that's not fair. That's taking, I think, a proportion of a service that causes iniquity. So I think what's being proposed is reasonable. I think those people who are able to generate larger amounts of organic waste will understand that they're in a different position to somebody who lives in a flat and doesn't have access to a garden of their own, and will, I think, take advantage of this service accordingly. So thank you for bringing it forward, and thank you for being straightforward with the explanation about why we're doing it. I think that's important.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Any other member? If not, Simon, back to you.
No, thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you, Teresa, for those comments, and I put it forward for colleagues' recommendation.
Thank you, Simon. The recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Let's move to item 10, Delegated Authority Temporary Accommodation Purchasing, which of course was in the name of Nashaba, but of course will now be presented by Luella. Over to you.
Thank you, Vince. The report requests that the Cabinet delegate its authority to the Director of Place and in consultation with myself as portfolio holder for the individual purchases of properties under our programme to invest in our own temporary accommodation stock. I'm pleased to see the officers are making positive progress in relation to acquiring properties, with a significant number now instructed to legal to process. Homelessness and the provision of temporary accommodation continues to be a significant challenge for Medway, and in 2023-24 saw more people approach us than ever for help. The programme builds on progress made under an initial pilot and other capital funding schemes to increase the supply of council-owned housing that will help us have more control over the quality and cost of temporary accommodation.
Thank you very much indeed, Luella. Any member? Simon?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I spoke at the time when this was first introduced, how important this is. This is a game changer as far as I'm concerned in how we do housing in Medway. It's the start of a journey that will take us on for many, many years to come. It's a hugely important piece of work. And what it does, it really finds how important it is for everybody in the community to have decent, high-quality standard of living, quality of housing. It matters for health and well-being. It matters for our young people. It goes right to the heart of a lot of the issues that we've already raised this evening about homelessness and about condition of living and stuff like that. So I think this is a massively important piece of work, and I fully support the delegation that's happening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. Teresa?
Yeah, thank you, Luella, and I think it's important to record thanks to Nashaba Khan for the work that she did on this and her determination to bring this forward with officers, and I know that the experiences she's had here will inform the direction and contribution that she can make in Parliament. We've got over 600 children who are homeless in Medway, and this is part of our ability and our determination to make sure that they are treated properly and set a standard for temporary accommodation. But by being able to purchase temporary accommodation ourselves, we can control the quality of it, we can control the location of it, and we can help those families who find themselves homeless, who have to go into temporary accommodation, to continue with the other aspects of their lives. One of the worst things about being put into temporary accommodation is having sometimes to give up even the school that you're going to, the job that you're doing, because you have to go to another location. So this is about our attempts in very, very challenged circumstances to do the best we can for people who find themselves in that unfortunate situation, as well as doing as much as we can to prevent them from being in that situation in the first place. And as you've said, Luella, more widely, through the local plan, through our intention to increase the stock of council housing, we will put ourselves in a position where people can look forward to an affordable home that they can maintain and that they can stay in. We're only at the start of that journey after many years of neglect and attrition in this area. But I think this is a really positive step that we can take, and I look forward to seeing the results of that.
Thank you very much, Teresa. I can't see any other colleagues. So before I come back to you, Luella, let me say a couple of bits. I would echo Teresa's comment around Nishaba's determination to make progress on this. It's been a challenging time in the world of temporary accommodation across the country. There are at least one borough council in the South East region, 50% of their entire budget has been spent on temporary accommodation costs. That is a challenge people are up against, and we know that actually the market is struggling because private sector landlords, even good private sector landlords, of which there are some, are struggling because of the interest rates being so high, because of Liz Truss's economic disaster of an experiment. That 50 days will be felt for the next 5 years and beyond in communities like Medway. And that's part of the reason, not entirely, but part of the reason why we've seen that dramatic increase in numbers that you rightfully raised in your opening remarks. So this delegation is eminently sensible. We know, with at least one very high-profile case, there are other local authorities who will be looking in Medway and elsewhere to get their hands on any property they can use for temporary accommodation. So we need to be as fleet of foot as possible. This delegation absolutely does that. So I'm very supportive of this. We need to get the best possible outcomes. We're shaking the market up. That's the right thing to do. And this will give us powers, and yourself and Adam directly, powers to get on when that property is available, which isn't often, but when it is, I don't want bureaucracy to hold up the potential for better outcomes for all of our people of Medway in those vulnerable places. Back to you, Luella.
Yes, just to second that, actually, I know, as ward colleagues, Nishaba's hard work and effort that's gone into this, and her determination, because she's very passionate, as am I, to make it happen. And thanks to officers as well. Just simply to say I put it forward for your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luella. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. That moves us on to the last substantive item. I'll remind colleagues there are blue papers. I don't think we'll need to go into them, but if we do, obviously, do indicate. But I think we'll probably get through the debate on item 11 without having to go into closed session. Tracy, over to you.
Thank you. This is a Gateway 3 contract award for special educational needs and disability transport and the dynamic purchasing system. It's a really important contract. It's really important because we're looking at providing transport for some of our most vulnerable children, and we really do need to get this absolutely right. The contract has been based on primarily the quality of the service being offered over the price. So 80% weighting was given to quality over 20% price. Parents are handing their children over to the care of the drivers and the companies, and they need to be absolutely confident in the service that's going to be provided. It's really important that it's in place for September, but there's work to do prior to that. And so built into this is ensuring that the companies have pre-meets with children and carers ahead of that time to make sure that they are fully aware of the children's needs, and that the parents and the children become familiar with drivers and the staff who will be assisting them to get to school. I will draw attention to the revised Exempt Appendix 1 and additional information Exempt Appendix 2, which has been labelled as 2A. This includes information relating to the awarded school routes which had been omitted in error in the previous version. These have been shared with Cabinet members today ahead of this meeting, and the information confirms the full evaluation outcomes for each school route against each bidder. So Cabinet are asked to agree the recommendations set out in section 1 of the report, which is namely that we award a place on the DPS to the bidders named in section 321 of the exempt appendix as they pass the Council's admittance award criteria. Subsequent to that being approved, the suppliers that have been identified in 3.4 of the exempt appendix that are awarded contracts for school transport to the named schools as they were evaluated as the most economically advantageous against the mini competition that then took place. And then finally, to directly award Medway North Transport via the TCAL exemption, the routes contained within table 3.5 of the exempt appendix as per the rationale also contained in 3.5.
Thank you very much indeed, Tracy. Any member? No, I think before I come back to you to conclude, I would say this is vitally important. We've seen in previous years, over the last decade actually, sometimes particularly that pre-September conversation hasn't happened. And for those individuals, both the children and the families, that's critical. So the fact that's referenced explicitly in there is very much to be welcomed. So thanks to the team who've dealt with that gateway procurement appropriately. Tracy, back to you.
Thank you. It's really important that this is put in place early, that the parents and the children meet with them, because it's a very stressful time anyway for parents when their children are being transported to school, sometimes to new provision. So it's really welcome if this is agreed, so that things can be put in place early to make sure that parents have full confidence in the transport that's going to be made available for their children and young people.
Thank you, Tracy. Colleagues, that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. That concludes tonight's Cabinet meeting. Can I congratulate our 3 new Cabinet colleagues for all making great contributions at your first meeting, and great contributions from the 7 existing Cabinet members, well, 6 and me, I guess. And finally, can I say good luck to England tomorrow, and if we are in the final, we'll be flying the flag at Gunwharf on Friday ahead of the final. So no pressure, Gareth Southgate. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.